falling on the Ethiopian highlands and cascading with spectacular force down a succession of rapids towards the parent stream via the Blue Nile and other rivers. But on the White Nile itself there would be no comparable discoveries, although this far longer river provided water all the year round, even during the months of winter and spring when the Blue Nile and the Atbara were dried up riverbeds. Despite Egypt's absolute dependence on the continuous flow of the White Nile, by the early 1850s not a single one of the succession of Greek, Italian, Maltese and French traders and adventurers who had attempted to locate the source for 2 decades had managed to journey further south than the position of the present town of Juba, 750 miles south of Khartoum. At first sight it seems incredible that in the era of the steam engine, the galvanic battery, telegraphic communication and accurate chronometers, the Nile continued to keep its secrets. But there were many excellent reasons for the lack of progress in the great quest. Fever and other unexplained tropical illnesses decimated expeditions, cataracts blocked the upper river, tsetse fly killed beasts of burden and made wheeled transport impossible, porters deserted, the rainy season turned whole regions into quagmires, and local conflict stirred up by the slave trade caused many chiefs to shower strangers with spears and poisoned arrows rather than with gifts. But between 1856 and 1876, the White Nile would at last yield up its secrets to an idiosyncratic group of exceptionally brave British explorers who would solve the mystery of the source bit by bit, despite many illnesses, including loss of sight and hearing, and in one instance, for a time, the use of both legs. They also suffered the ravages of flesh-eating ulcers, malaria, colonic hemorrhage, and deep spear wounds. Ironically, after their journeys were over, almost all would disagree profoundly about which one of them had won the crown. 50 years ago, Alan Moorehead's international bestseller about the search for the source of the Nile was published. Although in the decades since the White Nile first appeared, a mass of previously unknown facts relating to the search have come to light, both in manuscript and in published form, no full-scale attempt has been made until now to write a further book on the subject, in which the new material is used to deepen and redraw the characters and relationships of the original Nile explorers, to re-examine their journeys, and to reassess up to the present day the enduring and tragic consequences of 19th-century exploration of the Nile basin. New information exists that sheds light on all the above subjects, but also on more personal matters, ranging from Speke's alleged betrayal of Burton to how Baker acquired the mistress he took to Africa, to whether Speke had an affair with a Ugandan courtier, and to whether the real Livingstone and the real Stanley resembled their portrayals in the White Nile. Today, the mid-19th century explorers are often assumed to have been motivated by an avaricious desire to exploit Africans and Africa for commercial gain, or for the dubious satisfaction of wielding power over the powerless. In reality, a decade before the discovery of diamonds at Kimberley, and nearly 20 years before gold was found on the Witwatersrand, the motives of men like Burton, Speke and Grant were quite different from those of the European administrators, soldiers and traders who went out to Africa in the 1880s and 1890s, when the scramble for Africa was in progress. In the 1850s and 1860s, love of adventure played a greater part in motivating men to risk their lives to make discoveries than did the desire to carve out markets. Indeed, a longing to escape from what Stanley called that shallow life in England where a man is not permitted to be real and natural first drew him and the rest to Africa. Only the Dark Continent and other wild places appeared to offer to high-spirited individuals in the industrialized countries a chance to escape from the factories, offices and counting-houses of the expanding cities. Most would have empathized with Rimbaud's oft-quoted lament before he left Europe for Harar in Ethiopia. "What a life this is! True life is elsewhere." Samuel Baker wrote of longing to be a wandering spirit, and to plunge into the unknown. When Speke had been granted